Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Richard Lewis Show. I am Richard Lewis, sat in my hovel, my Dickensian hovel, joined by a Dickensian friend from back in the good old days before esports was shit. It is Lauren Pansy Scott, the Valorant commentator, legend in CSGO as well. And now I can say, for the first time, award-winning commentator.
Yeah. Wow, that feels weird to already say that.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's start there. Obviously, you've won an award. You've been recognised for your efforts over in Valorant after years and years of commentary.
Yeah.
So how does the award feel? Because what I find is people think awards suck until they win one. I was like that.
Suck. I still don't like them. Maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, maybe whatever it is, but I mean, quite genuinely, when I looked at the category there, you had Flowers, who had a fantastic year. His World's performance was really solid. You had OD Pixel, again, a mainstay in Dota. You had Alex, who came off the back of, I think, like Katowice. Was it? No, it was Cologne, I think it was. There was one of the... It wasn't the major, it was one prior that I actually think was like some of his actual objectively best work. So it's like, if I was being truly critical, I'd say the year before for me was probably arguably better if you looked at my quality of work. And this year I was fine. I did pretty good. I was quite happy with what I put out, but I would say that if you looked at some of the other casters, they were also having some of their all-time best performances. So it's like, if you're going to treat the awards as like a kind of lifetime achievement, like catching up, like, hey, OD Pixel needs one, Machine needs one, Lauren needs one, da-da-da-da, you go through the list until they're sated, and then you go into like, okay, by yearly performance, who's really done the big year, who's done the best big event, then I'd prefer that style. I think for me, it was like a tie-in that Valorant was just so successful. I know a lot of Riot were in the building as well. They turned up. Like, it felt like it was obviously incredibly flattering. Like, there's no two ways to put it. Obviously, it's very nice to win the award. It's a pat on the back. But it did feel like you could have given that to 3 other casters and it would have made just as much sense. And it's still that I don't really give a fuck about the awards, because I don't think even... let's say 1 out of the 5 to 10 people who are involved with choosing who wins the award, it's like, okay, well, how well did they know the analyst desk, really, inside out? Did they watch every product? It's the same with play-by-play casters. What nuances were they looking for? Because, again, where are you trying to pull that merit from? I think it's a very subjective topic, and I think a lot of people don't understand the intricacies of it if you're being critical of it. Like, obviously, at the end of the day, you could say, I really enjoyed that show. I really liked how that sounded. I don't want to go too far into it, but just, ear test alone, like that. And that's completely valid, but I think when you're trying to judge it against other people, it's like, okay, what criteria are they looking for? So again, like as said, like long story short, incredibly flattering. I got absolutely fucked in, just at the bar the whole time. They had the little slushies that had booze in it. So I was
Vegas are good for those.
Fucking knocking them back. It wasn't good. I started yelling stuff from you because we were watching it. I mean, it was at the end of the fucking show because I was getting a bit bored already, because it's done all the, pleasantries going through the sponsors and the, shit that no one really cares about, and you're gone and had a live performance and all of this. And it's an award show, right? It is what it is. But sat there and I'd had about 5 of these slushies, and they booze them up. They booze them up real nice. So I'd been on the sauce a little while, so I actually don't really remember much from actually accepting the award, which was probably a good thing, because I was quite nervous. I mean, I'm not particularly a like an outwardly confident person unless I'm doing my job. So it's like, I don't like it when it's focused on me more than me casting, I guess. So yeah, it was a bit weird, but yeah, all in all, very flattering. But it could have been, I'd say, potentially 3 other people as well who are just as deserving if you were looking at that year's performance alone. So
yeah, it's one of those. I often think as well, the other truism with awards is you never get the award the year you really deserve the award.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they always come later. It's like just about hanging in there. And I mean, I felt that was true of me. It took me years to win an award, and I think, and I've never even been recognized for any broadcast work I've done.
Because again, I still think as like a desk host, you are probably in some of the more tricky scenarios as well. Like if you look at someone
live TV,
with the likes of Duncan, with a lot
Mo.
of very like. Mo, I mean, you were like, if people look at objectively, was this a harder or an easier desk to work with? Was it a different product? Did he sell that product? Was this out of their wheelhouse? Did they still deliver? You know, and it's like, if you really go down it, it's crazy that didn't even get recognized. Yeah. And then the whole, like, journalist side, I think these days, apart from, like, maybe it's being kind of shitty to them, but people who just leak roster changes on Twitter, I don't think you're a journalist, really. You know, maybe call me a fucking moron, maybe I don't get it, but again, the pieces that you and Duncan and a couple of the other people out there who've been churning out incredible pieces that actually open up a lot of information about the esports scene that would have gone unchecked. It's like, how the fuck are you not just back-to-back champs of award shows? It doesn't make sense to me, but again...
And that's another thing, actually. Like, there's this weird thing with awards where there's no reason you can't just give it to someone over and over again, right? Like, and I'm not... By the way, I'm not... Everyone's going to go, oh, look, he's a fucking narcissist. I'm not saying that's what should have happened. What I mean
you're
is...
the best at something, fucking...
Yeah, but, like, people go, oh, they've won it twice, so, like... Can we really give it to them, like, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? And yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, I think as long as you get one in your career, it's... it's like an Oscar, you know? As long as you get one, then you'll always be, like, in the conversation for, like, elite-level commentators. So let's explore that, right? Because I know you're not one to self-aggrandize. Does this feel like a validation of sorts, winning the award? Because I think you've been criminally overlooked your entire career. And I don't think you've had appreciation in, well, certainly in CSGO. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, does it feel like, oh, okay, finally I'm kind of seen and respected for the work I've done?
I mean, it's always just, is it the product I'm on, or is it the quality of my work? I try and look at it. I think... The fact that it got the kind of signal boost from being on Valorant in the opening years, seen as one of the, you know, strong duos who get the finals, who get, you know, quite big shows, or, you know, quite big games, should I say, will put your name in the conversation regardless. You do a Worlds final for League, you're probably going to be in it. You do a major final, your name should be in it. Same with TI. You know, it's just that sort of class. So it's like, I guess I try and look at it this way: is if I did the same quality of work as I'm doing now, back in, you know, let's say I was in Counter-Strike, would I deserve to be up there? Or would I get up there? I mean, that's a hard part, is trying to figure it out if it's just purely because it's attached to Valorant or if it's attached to my quality of work. And I think that's where I'll always just kind of consider the weight that comes with the product you're on. So I find it a kind of a hard topic to just, you know, slice it down the middle, I guess, and kind of get to the core of it. But I'd say I don't know if I'd have had it if I was still in Counter-Strike, because I don't think I'd have had the eyes, because it always would have been Alex and Chad on a final, or let's say, you know, if it was, you know, still Matt and Henry would still be on a final, so you don't get that level of recognition of, you're on the finals, you're doing this, you're doing that. I think it certainly has helped that I did get the opportunity to run that further and have that fresh start in Valorant and kind of get that opportunity to have the platform to build from. Right. But yeah, again, if you look at the duos in multiple other games, I'd say Harry and Hugo, get them up for an award already. I mean, they're putting out quality of work, but they will be overshadowed by whoever does the final. You know, as you know, dry cut as that may sound. So, deserving's a strong word. I don't know. My work in Counter-Strike was never as good as what I'm doing now in Valorant. I did a lot of like work between. Yeah. I was nervous. I was small, I was shy, I delivered some okay products. I look back and I listened to some parts of it and I delivered a really good couple of games where I really gave a fuck, and it was like, I'm gonna, you know, 110% in no matter what. But there was always that kind of side of things where it was like, never had a consistent duo, you know. Jason was honestly a rock star to work with, but again, it would be chopping and changing. It could be, you know, the multiple people that could be put on the product. So I never quite found that duo. I never quite found my confidence as well, that personality you can interject into things. So I always felt like Counter-Strike and its audience were bigger than me. No matter what I did, I was so like lower down on the totem that I couldn't interject my own real personality. It was more, product comes first, game comes first, players comes first, and I am the last to be bothered about. Which, to an extent, I still believe is true, that the game and the players and that sort of thing does always come first, but you can couple it with that personality. I think someone like Machine does that fantastically. I think you really get to know who he is as a person through how he casts, but he never puts himself above the game. So it's like that balance is there. But I never had the confidence to even try and really, weave that in. So, yeah, I think I wouldn't have deserved it back then if I was on Counter-Strike, and I think my quality of work now is substantially better. But again, I don't know if I actually deserve it, or if I was just kind of put in the position to be seen to maybe receive it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a sort of crazy assessment, because it's like, I mean, for me, the thing that always really stood out about, your work in CS was, you were rapidly becoming like the Swiss Army knife. You were getting put, kind of like the role Jason occupies a little bit, or did at certain points in his career. You were getting put into, new pairings. So obviously you came through the scene with Machine, so you always had a good rapport, but, and it was like, what I loved about the cast you did with him was there was just this, like, they would just, it was like two old friends catching up with a bottle of wine, and they would just, like, descend into, like, into giggling. Yeah, exactly, and that was a lot of fun. And then you and Jason had this weird, almost like, flirtatious energy.
Yeah, my work husband.
Yeah, exactly. And you were getting put whenever there was like, oh, we just need someone to cast with this individual. Someone's having a day off. Throw Lauren in. So I always thought it was like a great tragedy that we didn't get to see you kind of bed in with a regular partner, and I think that would have helped actually. So
I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Why did that never happen for you? Especially when you see like how Machine's gone on now. He's with Sponge,
Yeah, I think it was a lot about the timing and where Counter-Strike was during that formative couple of years. I mean, you had your Room on Fire lot, right? So you had your Anders Semler, there's your duo. You had kind of Moses on a desk occasionally, on a cast occasionally, floats around a little bit, but mostly in that circle, I'd say. If you're going to try and like place people at the time. Then you had your Henry and Matt as drop the bomb during the era of that. A Machine kind of gravitated eventually towards that, as did Chad eventually through various pro leagues and ESL's, I guess, allegiance at the time towards them. And then you had your DDK and and Bardolph more on the face it side. And then you had a couple of other duos that, filled the occasional void. But that was your predominant, list of at least casting talent. You go down the desk, then obviously there's a multitude you could go to. I mean, I occasionally worked with Sean Gares when we did North American Pro League back in the day. That was a long time ago. And honestly, at the time, I mean, it was expensive to fly us out to do that. Like, considering the cost of things back then, and again, I was internal ESL, so it wasn't like I was making a day rate. I was making a monthly salary that was, I think, my day rate now, maybe a day and a half, give or take, before taxes and all that stuff, is more than I earned in a month. So you think about like the amount of work you would have done in that month was you're on about 30 different products, different casting pairs. Now it's okay, I've got 5-6 days of work, and that's I'm comfy. I can maybe I want to do like some content on the side. Now I can be a bit more creative. So the financial side of things was pretty brutal as well, and obviously ESL sending us even out to America to do that was hard. So it's like there was never really a set person that I could have potentially worked with. It was like, okay, let's say I went with Alex, right? Let's say Alex was the duo that I was going to attach myself to, right? But we're both play-by-play casters, so there was already going to be that deficit of potential knowledge in that duo, which people really liked at the time. They liked the idea of that. Even though then they'd look at someone like Anders and Semler, who weren't your super, analytical commentator. But then Henry set the bar so high, people always wanted that analytical side to things. So it's like, that's when maybe Moses could come in. But again, maybe Moses wasn't at every event. Maybe, he was doing more desk stuff this time. Or, it was a little bit of that. There was no one person available. And I didn't like doing the whole, allegiance behind the scenes. Because, again, I was an internal employee. I was on a salary. I'm not going to be there negotiating with them, and I'd have to have ESL approve that I'd go to that event. They'd be the ones to... So it'd be that little bit of a disconnect, unless someone worked at ESL, which Alex did at the time, but he left just prior to me. It wouldn't have really synced being a freelancer and someone being fully time contracted. It'd be a very, very hard sync to do. So I think it kind of missed that opportunity, partially to do with that. Partially because I should have gone pretty freelance earlier, but again, I'm of that era in esports where it's like, I'm making enough money to pay my rent, eat, whatever I want, get a coffee every day, and I'm pretty happy. It wasn't great money. It's actually pretty bad money if I look at it now, obviously. It's really fucking bad money, but again, I'm still of that era where it's like, I get to talk about video games for a living. That's it. All right, like maybe I should have been a bit more selfish or a bit more aware, but even in those days, no one really talked about rates. No one really discussed, hey, we're coming in at this, what are you making? Because you're working the same days as us. Are you being compensated correctly? Like, there was never that conversation because it is, a bit of rivalry to it as well. People want to make sure they're good, but it's not that they dislike you, but they want to secure their sales first, right? That's the nature of being a freelancer. It is a very, like, dog-eat-dog world at times. But yeah, I think the scenario just didn't quite blend when, as said, internal employee, freelancers, and it just have to really be, a very fortunate roll of the dice for it to actually, like, line up for a full-time duo there.
Yeah, and that's another thing I don't think a lot of people realized as well. You were existing in, like, a very strange twilight in the sense that, yeah, you're the ESL employee. I had the same thing when we did E-League. Everyone else is their freelance. I'm the guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the company man, and I didn't like that. It was a weird feeling because when I started out, E-League asked me basically they said your recommendations will carry a lot of weight as to who gets on the broadcast. So we'd love to get your thoughts. So I went into a room and basically said I like this, I like these guys, this would work, and they pretty much did all of it. And then it was like people were coming up to me, but people who weren't on the show, the assumption was
you are the gateway.
Yes.
Or you're the one who fucked them over. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, no, and I didn't say to not hire you. I didn't, I presented like pretty much all of the names you would expect.
Yeah.
But they went in a direction that, they chose. And obviously we had some people we sort of, air quotes, had to take,
sure.
Me being one of them. But it just wasn't a good feeling. The green room was very different.
Really?
Yeah. I think people were a little bit more guarded because they saw me as like, well, is Richard snitching? Which I can't even believe.
Yeah, that's a really weird mentality considering it's you. If it was potentially someone else, and maybe I think too highly of you. Maybe that's where I'm fucking up here. But again, I
try not to snitch on a daily basis.
It's so tempting.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where it's like, out of all the people, I think if someone's very candid with you, you've always responded in a very human way. I don't think there's that like, actually, no, I'm going to snake the fuck out of you right now. I think you've always been relatively fair about it. So it's quite curious that echoed into the green room, because that's meant to be a very like chill place. Like maybe you're a bit more buttoned up because you're on fucking TV, you're in these big studios, what have you. But again, green room's like the place to kind of unwind, and you get to be a little bit more relaxed. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds from that response that you never had any of that, or you didn't pick up on it, because obviously ESL is 80% of the calendar. You're an ESL employee. Yep. People are always at war with ESL.
There was a flat out no hire ESL employees from, I think it was Face It for a while.
It was,
and straight up, you do like, it doesn't matter if you are the go-to duo. Like, I mean, and I wasn't, right? So, I'm not talking about me here, but it was just straight up, if you work for ESL, you are not on this product. And that echoed for a lot of people beyond their employment at ESL. It was this weird tribal atmosphere at the time. It was very, very strange. And I know that went to not just like one or two other companies. I know there's a lot of people who were like, as said, ESL, we got to keep them, at arm's length. And now everyone's, chummy. It's really quite weird to see.
Well, you say everyone. There's only two companies left standing, isn't there? So,
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I never felt it that way. I think I felt external to the group because obviously if you're a freelancer, if you're building up stuff of your own accord, if you're doing it off your own back, if you're building up your own content, it is something you are, helming, and to interject in that wouldn't have been my place anyway. That was more, their side of things. And again, I was on about 20 other fucking products at the time. It was like, oh yeah, well, I know you're doing some Counter-Strike, but actually, how about some Battlefield? How about some tanks? How about some PUBG here? And it's like, it's very hard then to kind of take that downtime that you have as a freelancer and build around the brand that you're mostly attached to, or the one that you really want to work on. So it was that kind of slight disconnect again.
So, the kind of other question about CSGO, and I know we've broached this before. I can't remember if we did it on the last show we did, or whether it was just on a fucking No Majors Club or something.
Yeah.
But, we talked about the community and how much of a part it played in you leaving or going to do other things, or that was the perception. At the time, your answer was, no, it was just I wasn't getting hired to do those events, so I went and did other events. So obviously we've got plenty of distance and time now. So does that change the answer a little bit? Because again, I think about the comments I used to read about you, and then I think about the comments people say now about how much they miss you. And my gut feeling is it definitely played a part. I thought the community were very, very uncharitable towards you and your work, frankly.
Yeah, I think there was a degree of it, but I think it's such a weird topic for me because again, I just fucking disassociated from it. But no, it's that idea of I never really cared too much because again, I can't sit there and take the negative and then or like ignore the negative and then only take the positive because they're as useless as each other technically, right? It's like they're both coming from places of either not really understanding and being hyper negative or being hyper positive, and it's just that weird, like, I like this caster, they're my caster, any other caster is garbage and I hate them, right? And there's that, like, weird, like, it becomes like a team sport, right? So they're diehard fans. It's like the weird kind of parasocial relationship you get with it. And it certainly was, like, disheartening, I'd say. It pissed me off more when I was on the product itself. Because it's like, I was probably paid the least of anyone who was doing these shows. Genuinely. Any of the ESL employees internal at the time were probably paid fuck all compared to, the others there. And we were trying. I mean, I probably wasn't my best, but I did care. I did give a fuck. And it was disheartening when I was doing it. I think that knowing that my peers were also very supportive, though, and they didn't feel that way, they never acted that way, was always quite a... It was actually it was substantially more influential than having negativity from the community, because again, they're voices of people that do understand it or are more educated on that topic, right? It's like if any pro player or if any caster is like, oh yeah, I actually really enjoyed your work, that meant a million times more than let's say 50 comments saying fuck this bitch. And I mean, and that's where you chalk it up to also being the point of the internet where it was. I mean, the CS community was fucking toxic. Like, it still is a bit, right? There's still that element of, like, HLTV forums being a dumpster fire back in the day and still are a little bit. But, I mean, it has changed. The world has changed a little bit, and people are a little bit less, like, young and stupid and just, see a woman and just go, I hate her no matter what she says. There's always going to be that percentile anyway. So it's like, there's always going to be like 10%, maybe even less. Like, it's probably not even that much, but they're the vocal ones that will go out of their way to tell you that, which is bizarre to me. Because I've just, like, and that's what I look at it like. It's like, in my life, I will never feel strongly enough about a person that I do not know to go up to them and go, you know what, maybe I'd be positive and say, oh, I really enjoyed your work. And that would be it. I'd still be relatively neutral. But to go either to the sycophant side of things, that parasocial side of things, where I want you to be my best friend, I want, I'm part of this now, you've, really hooked me in, I want to be your best pal, or I hope you fucking die, I'm gonna send you pictures of where you live, like, that shit's just mental to me. Like, it still is, like, so it's like, I never really, I was hurt at the time by it, but I don't think it was like I need to leave Counter-Strike because of it. There was certainly an element of, because I had worked with ESL at the time, no one would touch you if there wasn't ESL. And then you had to have that weird conversation of, oh yeah, ESL just let everyone go, now they want to rehire us. And you do that weird, like, in-between, and it was just a bit uncomfortable at the time, kind of going through that. So it wasn't really I'm walking away from Counter-Strike because of the fans. It certainly didn't help, but it wasn't like fuck you guys, I'm gone, because if they didn't like me, they'd won if I'd walked away. That wasn't like anything like that for me. But yeah, it certainly fucking hurt at the time. That sucked. It was a bit bizarre because I always hated it because you try and keep up with the scores, because back in the day, like your old Katowices, your IEMs, anywhere, it was like there was like 3 or 4 group stage games going on at the same time. So you'd open up HLTV to try and check the results, and you just see the threads on the side. You're like, that's shit to see. But you suck it up and you get on with it. I mean, you shouldn't, I guess, but that's just what it was at the time. There's nothing I could have done or said to change that. And I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, that was kind of the nature of the beast at the time, I guess.
I think this will probably surprise you, but I think the world certainly has changed, and I actually find on average about a topic relating to CS, I find HLTV forums to be a better better arena of discussion than Reddit.
Yeah.
And you know, and what I basically on HLTV, everyone's a fucking everyone's actually quite astute about the game, but they're just trolls and they pretend to be morons.
Yes.
On Reddit, everyone is LARPing like a fucking genius when they're all about 75 IQ. And so what you end up with, I find, is, you know, like just really weird assessments of people's like work or craft on Reddit, you know, and it's all tinged with like a faux expertise that they clearly don't have. And I find the Reddit commentary to be the most profoundly inaccurate, and as a result, it's the most frustrating.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that when it comes to Valorant as well, to a degree, because I mean, maybe it's barrier of entry, maybe that Reddit a lot more people know about and go to than maybe your equivalent to HLTV would be like VLR in Valorant right now, would be the kind of interchangeable site. And VLR, it's a bit more trolly, it's a little bit more, you know, a bit edgier, you know, they can be assholes, but they do tend to know the game more, and they do care more about the game itself. Whereas then you'll get Reddit, which does have a little bit more of that parasocial attachment to certain casters or duos. You know, again, and you see that kind of like, well, I love this caster, so therefore they are the best. Or I love this player, therefore how dare you ever criticize them? And it's like, but do you objectively... Again, it's that lack of being able to be objective about things, that they just kind of see it as from a fan's perspective from one point of view rather than a neutral one themselves, because they'll be like, well, you're biased against my player. It's like, no, I'm not biased towards either side. There is a, you know, a critique that is valid here, but you can't see it because you are the one who is biased towards either player, team, caster. But it comes with also, I guess, the way Valorant's kind of done it to a degree of, they want the co-streams, they want the players to have, you know, more and more influence, which is good. I don't disagree to it, but it does breed that atmosphere of, well, I'm personally attached to this player. I don't ever want to see them talking, you know, spoken about badly or you know, critiqued. So the analyst desks are very reserved, very, you know, everyone's great pals, because if you become critical, you get shit for it. So it's like, it's that balance of, I wish, and this is the thing I was thinking about recently. I was like, I really wish we either had a Yanko or a Duncan, some you know, a hard-hitting analyst, where it can be quite abrasive. It can be, you know, a little bit almost like a provocateur of, you know, getting that reaction, pressing the issues, because I think it's very hard to do that currently, because if you get kind of seen as that person, you get put into a box by either the, you know, maybe if Riot doesn't like it, or if maybe the players don't like it, therefore the fans don't like it, your value then gets decreased rather than maybe increased because you had a valid point. So it's very hard to be that kind of, you know, I guess harder lined analyst, which I wish we had. It's why I've been really enjoying watching the play-ins, just to hear Yanko, hear that great line of it. He's such a talent. And then, you know, you'll hear Maniac, who's that more like romantic style, talks about, you know, the players and the emotive side. And I think there's such a nice balance in Counter-Strike. I'm always envious of that. But it is hard to do that, I'd say, in Valorant, because the fans can be a little bit more attached to certain players, and they will come down on you 10 times harder if you critique their favorite player, even if it was absolutely valid. So it's a little bit of a tricky subject in that.
Well, I've had Yinsu, you know, on the show. We talked about when she fell afoul of that, but you know, it is a weird spot that Valorant finds itself in, because I agree. You know, it should have. It's like, you know, in any sport, there's got to be a bad guy. You know, there has to be.
I love that balance.
Yeah,
I want the kind of more narrative, floaty, kind of more personality-driven, a little bit more like higher, like not high level, but kind of that surface level. Kind of introduce people in, because not everyone's, you know, watching every single CS:GO game or Valorant game or whatever. But, you know, you want them to draw in on that, get that personal reason to watch. But then I also want to be catered to as someone who's a more dedicated fan. I want Yanko to tell me that was a shit T-side. I want them to, you know, him to break down around and say, this is another mistake they've made. This is a, you know, a genuine problem. This player's underperforming here, and it's costing them either rounds, this area of the map's been lost now. Like, I love still hearing that. and I think it's a really lost art to do it well these days because, again, certain TOs, certain companies probably don't like a negative twist to it. They prefer it to be painted in a, oh, well, the other side's maybe doing it better than them, rather than, actually, no, sometimes you're just fucking up. Like, it's just how it is. You have a bad game. It's the nature of the beast. But I really miss that. And I'm waiting to see people get confident enough on analyst desks in Valorant especially, even in casting as well, don't get me wrong, to actually highlight an error or two, to kind of explain why that was an error, what happened because of that, what was the knock-on effect, because that sort of stuff intrigues me as as a viewer and as someone who consumes it as well. So it's like, I'd love to see us hit that point already, because Counter-Strike is blessed with some of the best analyst desks there are, always has been. It's
well, I seem to remember though, didn't you get got by a player not too long ago?
What was it? I think it was at the very start. It was Wardell and Cutler.
Wardell definitely
Wardell
subtweeted you or some shit.
Yeah, because I said in the role that was happening. So basically, I think Wardell was playing what would be a duelist, right? So Jet or something similar. And Cutler was playing basically more of an information-based agent, maybe something that's a little bit more lurk heavy. Shouldn't be the one that should be top fragging out. And I kind of highlighted it in that regard that Wardell needs to start finding some more form here, because it shouldn't be Cutler being the one to have to do this heavy work. This is not the role that he's meant to be potentially playing in that map, if I remember correctly. Again, it's a couple of years ago now. And I remember Wardell taking that as me shitting on Cutler, and I was like, no, if anything, I was questioning your impact right now, because
I'm shitting on you, dude.
You're in the position, and you get put into positions and played in positions that you're meant to be, having higher impact from. So it was more of a discussion of that. But because if you roll it back, even in Counter-Strike, Cutler used to get shit about everything. You know what I mean? Like, his performance got a lot of question marks.
Yeah, he wasn't a very good player. I mean, I'm talking about at a pro level. He obviously was he was a mature dude. He was an affable dude. Yep. He's the type of guy you want to play in a team with.
Absolutely.
Right up until the point when it comes to, we're on the server and I need him to clutch.
Yeah, but to be fair, he was having a great game, right? That was like one of those games where I'm like, Cutler's having a fucking belting game, but I'm looking at where their superstar's gone here. It was Jet pre-nerf, when Jet was running rampant and he had operators every day. Wardell was like one of the hot prospects as well. Early in Valorant, he was seen as this massive star that could have been right up there. So it was more of a comment on that, but obviously he took it as, you're shitting on Cutler, and I'm like, but you can't have that dialogue, right? Like, I wish you could go up to someone at LAN and just sit down and be like, yeah, actually, I was seeing it from this way. But people don't want that. They'd rather kind of shit on you in a public forum, or try and make it so your fans then dive in on it, and there's this whole fucking discourse. And it's just like, I really wish it could be an actual conversation with nuance, because in my mind, it's always like, the most important things when I'm casting is like, from top level is like team, player. I mean, player and team's interchangeable, but then, the event itself, the merit of the game, it goes down to this list, and it's like, my opinion's pretty, not low down, but it's quite far down. One, I'm a play-by-play caster, but if I'm highlighting that your best player that you have is not having impact, don't then twist it around to be me shitting on Cutler. Like, it was just like a weird mishap that didn't really work out, and it was just like, it's very interesting to see how that's already changed. So, like, there's already a mentality shift of that, where people got sick of players running to Twitter and being like, how dare you say this about this? People are like, yeah, but dude, like, in the nice way, this is also your job. You're in a sport, right? So it's like, if you have a bad game, people will look at you and say you had a bad game, and that's okay. That's the nature of you playing a competitive sport. That's fine. Like, obviously, if they take it to the extreme, then that's dog shit. Like, we don't support people being absolute cunts, but you can't, kind of categorize it all as the same thing. Valid criticism and then shitting on someone personally is not the same thing, so you don't treat it as the same thing. So it's like, people got a little sick of that, and they were like, some of these players are super whiny, we just turn up, play the game, like, we support you guys. So it's like, there's already that shift happening, which is good.
Yeah, and that's just classic player privilege. Wardell embodies that shit, actually, because, his attitude in CS fucking stank, which is why his better opportunities came towards the end of his tenure. And he definitely will be like, he's another guy that's gonna go on the NA scrap heap at the end of his career in any game, because I don't know what it is, but there's like a level of maturity you have to have as a competitor, and if you don't have it, then somebody externally has to be the make weight, like a mentor, a coach, a manager, whatever it is. And NA players are super resistant to having that. They, we saw all that with the Stewie, why would I get a cup of coffee with my coach reaction? It's a strange. It's just a strange world. Like I feel guys like that, and a lot of players I see. I'm amazed it's got this far into the development of Valorant as an esport. There are a lot of fucking influencers and streamers masquerading as competitors, and they're gonna get found out.
It's shifting.
It is for sure.
Because eventually the cream will rise to the top, right? Or at least you hope. Like if the game itself rewards the better player, that should be the case, and it is. I think, especially towards franchising and partnership this year, it's moving that way already. You can't keep having players who are just kind of circling around, and you'll see them in tier 2 and again there's some really exciting teams actually in the the slightly lower end of the scene. I say lower, but in that one tier down, that will have a larger fan base because they are still a bit more of a streamer, a bit more of this. They know how to build a brand, which is super valuable as well. Like there is that side to it where it's like you can build a brand, you can be a streamer, you can be somewhat of an influencer, but it is that balance of you're still a pro player, right? Like you still lean that way. So it is starting to shift, and a lot more teams are becoming. You're seeing a lot of these people, and this is something I was actually thinking about earlier on today, is that you're seeing a lot of people kind of, when franchising started to really happen, really surprised that some of the players they really liked didn't get picked up, didn't get put into other teams. And they were like, oh, but he performed really well here. But it's like, yeah, but did he blend really well with the roster? Did he fit the roster? Like, oh, who the fuck's this guy? I mean, again, I remember when it was, Nats Chronicle, one of the, CIS-based team. Same with Angel's team at the time. I think it was FPX they were under the brand of. But it was a team that obviously didn't do very well on socials. I think Fun Plus Phoenix is more of a Asian org anyway. I think it's either China or that way. Massive out there, but has no real European founding. So they didn't have much of a following. They didn't have much of a fan base to it. And they went and, absolutely spanked some people's favorite teams. They had probably some of the hottest prospects there were at the time with, like, Artis, who I still think is, like, one of the highest end players, but people were surprised that this guy is beating my favorite player from X region or Y region. It's like, yeah, because he's actually good. And that was a little bit of a failure, one of the org at the time, but also I'd say EMEA as well. When we're looking at the regional stuff, there were players that we were saying you've got to cover. Leo, for example, this Swedish kid who's absolutely insane. I mean, the guy I'd say is arguably one of the safest pair of hands in the game, but has huge clutch potential as well. You kind of I'm trying to think of like an equivalent, but the guy, this is his year to prove that, because he was, kind of wading through not a middling team, but he was always the outstanding player from it. He got picked up for Fnatic this year. He's got literally a star-studded, 3 other players around him. You have Boaster as an IGL, so it's like Boaster now has to prove that he's been given like the best hand that he could ever, win potentially, and he should be winning tournaments potentially if they don't shit the bed early in Brazil. I think they should do a deep run, but they have a really hard side of the bracket, and it's like singular limb, so it can be quite brutal. So I don't want to read too much into it, but if all goes well, they should do a deep run. But you are starting to see teams shift away from maybe the early guard and, some more, the influencer-based pickups to we just want to fucking win now. Like, this isn't, popularity contest, it's let's get some winners on this team, and you've seen that. Now, no one's, trying to pick up the kind of influences these days in that regard because it's too competitive, it's too high-end already. So, yeah, this year should prove by the end of it to probably be the most competitive, and I'm quite excited to see that because right now it's still every roster's rebuilding, so it's going to be rough, I'd say, in Brazil, quality-wise, but it should be fun to watch, I guess.
Well, I just want to rewind a little bit and talk about just Valorant, how it's kind of been constructed as an esport and some of the things it's done well. And I know it's super boring when you're a chick and the interviewer only wants to ask you chick questions.
Hit me with it. What's it like to be in esports?
Well,
let's go.
Yeah, so, look, I made this point like a lot, and that is that I think there's still a bit of a, There's still a legacy in CS where it's a very traditional, masculine, whatever word you want to use. Yeah, exactly. We're jocks, and everyone else is the nerds, and we're the rock stars, and with it there comes a bit of an attitude where, I think it's massively overplayed. Still, like, I think it's way better than it was. But when you compare where we're at with CSGO to where we're at with Valorant in terms of, if you play a Valorant game and there's a girl on your team, you're probably not going to hear anyone even react to that. Probably.
To me.
It does happen. But I think in general, it just seems that the game has a more feminine presence, and no one gives a shit. As it should be.
No, right, I mean, the mad thing for me was we did the event in Copenhagen, right? And which was Counter-Strike's backyard. I already thought that was a fuck up. To go to Copenhagen, it's just like, why have you come to CS territory? It's like going to Katowice and going, why has no one turned up to the events? But hey, that, my opinion aside, what the fuck do I know? But we finally opened up the doors to have the first real live audience in, rather than small. But I mean, it was like 40% women, and it fucking baffled me. Like, not just like I'm bringing my girlfriend. It was legit, and and again, like I've been in esports for years. It just doesn't happen really. Like if you watch like the old women's events from maybe a couple of years ago, the only people really in the audience maybe like family, friends, and the other teams competing. No one really watched it in Counter-Strike. It wasn't like there wasn't much of a fan base about it. And it was always treated very secondary as like Intel's or any other sponsor has given us X money to make sure this happens, and it has to be women. And that's always what it felt like. Like it was still done well, but it was always on the same day as the finals. So why would anyone want to come and watch it? It was always never quite put on the right platform it should be. But like weirdly, and of all people, I didn't expect Riot to be the ones to actually give a fuck, which is bizarre to me. And maybe it's for optics. Maybe it's there is obviously the other side of things where it's like, hey, Riot Games, we like women here. Like maybe there is an element to that, but like if you go to the hands-on level of it, the day-to-day and what they're doing for it, it's fucking mad. They had like an actual song for it. They had the animation done properly. They had a really nice event for it. Like it wasn't just treated as we'll just reuse the same graphics, just change the player profiles, we'll just change the lower thirds, it'll be fine. It was fucking brilliant. Like actually the Game Changers event they did in Berlin was out of the LEC studio there. And it was incredible. It was a great atmosphere. And
talked about it with Van Silly. I think the Game Changer events are fucking sick. I mean, like, put it this way.
One of the best.
I think, unironically, I think the Game Changer events are better produced with better content than almost anything ESL has done in the last, 18 months.
And again, it comes from genuinely and it sounds so shillish when I say this, and I don't want it to be that way because I am normally the biggest cynic quietly. I'll just sit there and grumble in the background. I'll make my opinion heard, but I'm not gonna go on Twitter and fucking yell about it. There's no point. But it's more that people actually gave a fuck. Like from their side, the build into it. I mean, there's a documentary coming out about it, and I got to see a couple of bits and pieces of it. It's actually probably one of the better docu-series that was done. And I think it's because the one thing that really got me was seeing the players when they walk off stage. 'Cause I remember playing back in my day, and I mean, as I said, back in a fucking iSeries. But you'd walk off stage and your hands are still shaking, right? The adrenaline's still there. You're taking a second. You're breathing in. You either lost, you won. It doesn't really matter. But there's that moment backstage. And now I see the bigger events where people already they're so accustomed to it now. It's their job. They're calm. Then this is their 100th LAN. They don't get that same emotion unless maybe it's a major or something that's so out of the box. But your everydays. And I mean, seeing these players walk off stage was fucking unreal. Like it was like this actually meant a shitload. And we had big narratives coming in, like the favorites lost, which is incredible. And the old guard won. It was like Giuliano, Mimi, that lot. Beating the North American teams in the finals, and the reverse sweep best of 5. Rob Wiz flipping someone off, getting fucking banned for it. It was so dramatic, but it was great to watch. I mean, I felt bad for Rob, but still, it was one of those things. I mean, I'm not an admin, but still, it was just like I was amazed it worked out as well as it did. So it's just like, yeah, I don't understand why it's so different, because Counter-Strike, it still feels like yeah, they're putting on events. They're, you know, doing bits and pieces. It's, you know, it's there. They're trying to show presence, but it's like, where's the growth? Where's that, like, next stage to it? You know, where's that next piece to it? Where's that, you know, when's you going to do something a little bit different from your normal circuit? Where, you know, what are you going to do to try and change this up here? But it just feels a little stagnant. But again, I don't know their budget. You know, how much budget are they given to be creative and create something new, or put on a better product, or, you know, change things up? You know, how are you meant to make this reach the wider audience? Counter-Strike isn't like... Counter-Strike has a huge player base, I feel, but it doesn't have a lot of, like, new players every day coming in. If you play Counter-Strike, I play Counter-Strike probably, like, once or twice a week. I'll hop in, play, you know, something. But I don't think there's, like, a 14-year-old coming in going, nice, I'll play a bit of that. And especially, like, a 14-year-old woman would probably know Valorant now over CS or feel more comfortable. Like, there's still mad toxicity, of course there is. Like, some dickhead will be a dickhead, right? There's still assholes in it.
Yeah, you're never getting away from the dickheads.
No, they're there. That's just how it is. But yeah, the percentage is massively lower. And I've been chat banned so many times in Valorant for just being like a counter dickhead. But it's just like
the old counter dickhead. Yeah, you've got to do it sometimes. You have to be the counter dickhead.
I think I said the word nonce and it got me banned.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It was, you know, it was relatively calm. It wasn't like I was going absolutely off the, you know, off the plane of existence. But yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a different world, and I don't actually know why. I'd love to know the metrics or how it's happened, but it's kind of refreshing. But it's never been like a big thing for me. Like, I still want co-ed to be the eventual goal. Like, I still don't want it to be women's teams, men's teams. Always wanted it to be mixed. I still think that the best players... Like, here's the funny thing, right? And people kind of miss this a little bit because Potter got shit for it. But she played in the mixed team before she became the coach. And she was good. If you put her against any other women players at that time, I mean, astronomical difference.
Yeah.
She had a couple of bad games visibly, which obviously then everyone was like, she's dog shit, you know, the classic. But the difference in her capability already was 10 times above. So it's like, I hope someone out of this gets that. You get that one player who breaks in, and I think Valorant's the only one at the moment that could really do it. I don't think CS is ever going to have... And Joe, I'd love to be proven wrong. It's not me wishing ill on it. I don't think you'll see a woman break into the tier 1 scene in Counter-Strike these days in a mixed team. I just think the percentile's already so low and so minimal. That changeover is so tricky. So I don't think it'll happen. Maybe in Valorant. I don't know yet, but I want to see that. That's still like my main goal, is seeing if that actually happens.
Yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, I kind of felt when Potter started playing, you know, I'll be honest, because I'm gonna have Potter's coming on the show.
I love Potter. She's
she's
one of the
great.
best people, genuinely.
But there was a bit of a, because I'm like you, I'm a fucking cynic, you know, and I think all of this stuff, right? Because I don't trust corporations.
Nope.
I think all it comes down to is 50% of people on the planet are women, and wouldn't it be great if we could sell our shit to them too?
Outstanding.
Yeah, that is what I think it's really all about. So when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, really? But like you say, you know, the fact that she wasn't like, even in her bad games, she wasn't like a million miles away from the level you would expect of, you know, a male professional on that team. You know, I think we're super close, and I think, you know, there was a lot of people trying to push it in Overwatch, and it didn't quite happen there.
It just feels so forced though in Overwatch.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, they can't do anything, right? It's, you know, they fuck up a cup of coffee down there. So, but yeah, you know, I think I agree. I think if I'm gonna see it, it'll be with Valorant, and I think we're super close. I really do. You know, it's not going to be a deluge. It's going to be one or two.
Yeah, that's it. You think about the percentile of people who even go professional, even get close to it, have the mentality for it. Because the thing, like, I always think this, and it's something that I don't think, not Riot highlights, but Valorant highlights. Technically, you could play solo queue and be the best in the world, right? Let's say you're not necessarily the exception to the rule, but you're close enough too. But let's say you're dog shit in a team environment, you're a selfish player, the way you approach the game's selfish, or your comms are bad, the way you interact with your teammates is absolute wank, you're shit at remembering the strats, you know how to play for yourself, but you don't know how to play for others. Like, there's a lot of pitfalls that happen at that level that are just not addressed, and they're like, why is this player not picked up? So there's already some incredibly, like, if you look purely at the rankings alone or the new, I think it's like Tarek's Pro City has a couple of players in it who are off the top end of the women's scene. Technically, their mechanical capabilities are near on there. I mean, there's a couple players that are, you know, becoming the exception to the rule where it'd be a miss to not pick them up. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens to them and see if they do work in a team environment. Because again, I've known a lot of male players who are mechanically gifted. They have that just capability. You watch them play and it's so easy to them. It feels natural. But then they never quite gel in that team environment. Their attitude's just not there, or whatever it is. There's a multitude of reasons. But I've always been interested to see if maybe one of these players could be the one to step in, because they're incredibly young still. I think some of them are, you know, sub 21, 22, so they're still around that, like, you know, getting into the professional, you know, sort of age where you can really start honing your craft. So there could be a couple, even from this generation now, that could filter in. But again, it's, you know, it's franchise teams. You're not going to take a risk for the first go of franchising ever. You're going to get your bank out. You're going to get your checks written and get whoever you can afford in. So you're not going to take that risk yet. But I think you could start seeing it in the tier down below. And if they prove that, you know, route actually works, then you actually might start seeing them eventually make it in towards the higher end.
Here's a difficult one, but I've got to ask. Hypoc.
Yes.
Good friend of mine. I don't see him.
I love Michael.
Don't see him as much as I would like.
I got him addicted to DayZ. We just play shitty games together now. It's great.
Yeah, I see you popping up on my Steam playing that garbage.
Oh, it's great. It's absolute dog shit, but I love it.
But yeah, anyway, so I haven't seen him. Last time we saw him, I think we got absolutely destroyed in, I want to say it was the Luxor in Vegas. I'm not even sure.
Yes, I think he told me a couple of stories from that one.
Well, I apologize to everyone for my continued existence, which is wretched. But so you've obviously casted with lots of people across multiple games. And you and him are considered one of the, if not the go-to duo now over in Valorant. You do all the top tier events together. So I wanted you to rate him out of all of the people you've ever worked with. Why is he the person that you've settled on as a casting partner, and what makes him so good in your opinion?
Flat out, if I'm rating top 2, he's up there with Alex, probably, sharing that role in my mind, because it echoes back to what you said earlier on, that it's like you're sitting down with your mate, bottle of wine, having a laugh, watching a movie, a stream, a game, whatever it is. Working with Mike is like that, and I had that with Alex, and it was, it was a joy, right? I love working with Alex. It doesn't feel like you're ever working. You're just having a bit of a laugh. You're enjoying something you both really like. And getting to work with Mike was quite interesting, because we only got really put together by chance, because he was with CSA at the time. He fancied a bit of, getting into Valorant. I'd come off of Counter-Strike. And we're like, okay, let's give it a try. See if it works out, because I was thinking about maybe, Sean Gares at the time, if that'd be a possibility, or, this cast or that cast. Everyone's having chats, because it's early Valorant, where it was, the Wild West. Everyone's trying to see who's working with who. And we eventually did a couple of shows together. I was like, yeah, he's actually decent. He knows what he's talking about, which is great. Like, already, an analyst is... A knowledgeable analyst is hard to come by. And everything else you can refine, right? So it's like, if he knew what he was talking about already, he's, this was like my first impressions, he's high up on the list, right? I'm liking how to work with this guy. So that's great. He knows his shit. If there's anything, like, the technical side of casting, that can be fixed. If he's open to fixing it, that could be done in a second. No worries. But he knew his game. He knew how to talk about it, because he used to be a professional PUBG player. He used to play. I think it was Unreal Tournament, like as high as you could get to a degree at that time. I mean, again, the guy is of our era, so it's like already this is feeling good. And then getting to hang out in Berlin was the first time I think we actually got to cast in person. And it was just instantly, I get on with this guy. I can go for a beer, we go for drinks, we go for food, and it's just like, we're both similar age, grew up around London, very easy to get on with. It was like, and that's quite a rarity, because a lot of people are very young these days, or, from a completely different background, very hard to get that instant bond with. So yeah, I got to say, Mike's probably been a godsend in this, because if it wasn't Mike, and it wasn't, let's say, Sean Gares or someone of that ilk, I would have probably struggled with some of these shows because there was some really big teething problems early on. There was, some very real frustrations with technical issues, and you're filling for fucking ages. You're not going to a break. All this other shit. And without Mike, I would have been a fucking nightmare, I think, because I would have just lost my shit at other people. He's really good at, like, kind of balancing my bullshit out, and I think I balance his bullshit out. So it's that nice, like, cohesion, and, we just go and get shit-faced afterwards. So, yeah, it works quite well. It's a good balance. I think we're just both quite old, quite jaded, but we're not shit at what we do, so I think we do all right.
Yeah, well, yes.
That's it, I guess.
Nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Is it a bit of a different dynamic when you're, because obviously in CS, I think the game gets to breathe a little bit more,
Yes.
And in Valorant, it feels a bit more rock'em sock'em. There's like loads of stuff happening potentially all at once, abilities being deployed. So is there a different technical approach? I mean, I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And in my mind, and the way me and Mike have somewhat discussed it as well, and I use it in play-by-play, he uses it a lot in his more analytical essence towards it, but he agrees with me that there's key utility, there's key things that happen that supersede the others. Right, so you'll have potentially your standard start to a round, is it whether it's a default, whether it's more a sight lean, maybe they're heading more into one direction than the other, but then you look out for the one thing that actually either really had impact, be it a nice combination of utility, something very unique, maybe a counter, maybe a new player position. How have they adjusted after maybe reading into this? Is this them adapting throughout the game? Is this them aware of this prior? It's those sort of adaptations that are interesting to me, because you can only say, they've placed the same 3 smokes and they're gonna flash again. There's only so many times you can really explain the basics, so it's kind of more looking at what that difference is, what made the difference there. Sometimes it's simply a player hit 3 headshots, right? Like, there is no big mystery to it. This player, at the end of the day, beat the other player. He beat 2 other players after that as well. But maybe there was something that facilitated that. Maybe there was something that tipped the odds in his favor. Maybe there was a nice adjustment after getting that information the prior round. So Mike is exceptionally good at noting that and kind of highlighting. It's something that I always like my co-casters to do, is kind of expand on topics, because to them it's very simple, but to either viewers or someone who's simply looking out for, I want my player to do well, or whatever aspect you're watching it from, it's explain the kind of cause and effect of that. Explain what that means. What did that actually achieve? What did it tangibly do? So let's say we go beyond the 3 smokes. Let's say there was, a jet dashed into a smoke. Okay, that's nothing too exciting, but then is there layers to this? Because maybe they're looking to get a KO knife, which basically highlights anyone within the radius of it. It kind of like does a mini reveal. Did they get the jet to sit in the smoke, be safe within the smoke, and then use a KO knife to reveal everyone else around it, and then just hit them through the smoke? Was that actually the key piece there? So it's like, I like the way that Mike will be really good at kind of noting those slight layers, those slight next steps, and delivering it in a really kind of consumable way, and just noting what to look out for. Because again, I think there are good casting duos in Valorant. I don't think anyone does it as well as Mike does in what he's saying, and he doesn't get as highly praised for it, because it's not the flashy role, right? I'm in the highlight clips. I'm the one who's yelling some shit about tens, I'll be on the weird TikToks that get, shown to me. And Mike's occasionally there at the end going, yep. And then goes into the most informative spiel, but it doesn't get put in the highlights, right? So it's like he's very unsung in that role, but I think he does that incredibly well. And yeah, Valorant, it can be a mess to look at. And if someone isn't there to kind of highlight what was actually important, what actually made that round influential, or what changed, what they were trying to achieve with it, then it's just nonsense, which is what he does incredibly well.
Yeah, and look, I think I still think as well there's going to be an interesting shift in broadcast talent coming on to Valorant, because I think low key. There's been games that have had really good talent pools at any given moment in time. You think about StarCraft 2 and obviously CSGO.
Yep.
I think Valorant is up there for sure in terms of the people it's got attached to it, even right down to the observers with Sapphire and Prius and people like that. But I think what it is lacking at the moment is a couple of salty ex-pros.
I've been trying to get Josh. I want Steel on an analyst desk.
Oh, that'd be good.
I'd love a bit of it because he's,
great.
He can really stir the pot. He's funny. He's approachable. He knows his shit. I mean, the guy literally plays at the level that is competitive. Like, I would love to get Steel in there with, let's say, someone fluffy. Right, you put him with someone a little bit more, like kind of your Maniac-esque person who's a little bit more romantic in approach, a little bit more descriptive, a little bit more, entry level for people first coming in and making it about the player and the personality. And then you get your kind of more hard-hitting, kind of on-the-nose person like Josh. Or then I'd love Sliggy. Sliggy is wonderful at it, a great mind for the game. He does his own streams. So if honestly there's a main stream going on, I will go and watch Sliggy's stream because it's 10 times more informative. And that's no discredit to the analysts there. But Sliggy coached one of the tier 1 teams. He's got a great mind for the game already. Like, of course, I'm going to watch his stream. And you'll find about just every other pro or caster in his stream. I mean, I think it's crazy that he wasn't on the hit list. Right, if I'm looking for pickups for major events, I'm getting Sliggy as a mainstay. Because he's safe. Sliggy's like the nicest guy. He's never going to swear or say something mad on air. It's just Sliggy. Nice dude. Yeah, Steel is a little bit more of a loose cannon. If you get him reined in properly on the desk, though, with a good, strong desk host, you could get a great product out of him. But yeah, maybe a little bit more dangerous. Maybe he pushes the boundaries a bit much at times. But I like that. I'd love to watch that on a desk. So I think, as I said, I want that person too. But maybe I'm not the main audience anymore. I have to also come to the terms that maybe I'm not the demographic. Maybe they don't want that anymore. Maybe they want everyone to be best friends and be pals and just, talk. In a certain aspect, I don't know.
Fuck that anime bullshit. I think, like, the bottom line is, like, the fans don't know what they want until you smack them in the face with it, yep. and then they know, and they certainly tell you what they don't want. The majority of people definitely would want, even if they think they don't, they would want somebody like Steel shitting on somebody for the mistakes they made in a game.
It'd be so good. It would be fucking incredible. And this is the thing, though. A lot of people want to be a caster over an analyst. I don't get why, because I think genuinely you can make such a name for yourself. But it really is, I want to escape the desk. So I still think Josh and Bren they're great casters. They're probably, if you're looking at objectively who the big casters are, it's me and Mike and them, right? Like, coming over from Overwatch, they're great. Very, very skilled at what they do. But putting them on the desk, I think is still their strongest suit. And that's no disrespect to their casting. I just think they really excel at kind of creating something that an audience can consume. That it's really well delivered. It's well crafted. You can tell from start to end they're trying to achieve something. It's like very polished as a product. It's wonderful to see. Because I'm like, oh wow, I've never got to see this Overwatch style delivery of ideas and how they work. 'Cause, like, I feel like Counter-Strike is a little bit more, not laid back, that's the wrong way to put it, but it's very natural. It's just like, hey, I feel this way, I've watched this team a million times, I used to coach them, I'll tell you how it is, Those guys, I know they are in super early to work on the scripts, they're super early to work on any content that comes in, they're the ones that, are going through all the B-roll content, trying to, find the right pieces and put that together. I still think they are so strong on the desk, it's hard to ignore it, but obviously everyone wants to be a caster, and they're great at casting. They are exceptionally good, so I can't really just be like, go on a desk. But you watch them work, second to none. It's really nice seeing them on that, so it's always a bit of a treat to get to see them in that role.
We're way past where I would have liked to have got it in, but
Sure, go ahead.
Just a quick question about PUBG.
Sure.
No one, it doesn't exist anymore, so it's fine.
Oh.
But it's like, I don't know, I worked in there for a time, and I know, like, has there ever been more wasted potential than that game?
Nope. Like, genuinely, it was one of the first that understood the value of influencers. It was the first to truly put, even like skins in game. You get your Shroud gun or your, Jenna and Julian skin on your gun or whatever. They were doing things that were so far beyond, like, the time of, when it really hit. I mean, they had such a big audience, so much potential, but they never knew what to do with their esport. Because their esport was just so different to their actual core gameplay by the end of it. They had third person, first person, duos, playing as 4, all this other shit. And the core game itself just became such a different beast from the esports game. So it's very hard for your casual audience to want to watch it. And yeah, they really dropped the ball, and it's a shame. Because look, I play the dog shit DayZ game where it's like, a milsim with zombies. It's where I find fun, and you can really upset people because they go around for hours collecting little things, and they put it in their base, and you open up their base, you take their little things. It's like Rust.
Wouldn't have had PUBG without Daisy, you know. So
basically, it's like again
the failure of zombie games gave us battle royale. That's like an observable fact.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. So it's like that whole thing, and I think it started when, as much as PlayerUnknown wasn't like hands-on anymore, but when he moved away from the product as well, and it was left with I think it was like the Korean dev team. They took it in a direction that I think it was almost all too past the point of recovery. I just never think they knew what they wanted their esports to be, or their game to be. It never quite found its comfort zone, and you know, they would never really listen to the voices from the community at that point either, you know, because it was just too big, and it's made its money. It did what it did. And it's a shame, because genuinely it was, I mean, what a whirlwind it did. It set this whole new genre of game into motion. At massive events, used to have like Dr. Disrespect and Shroud, like, you know, being influencers on the stage, these crazy performances. But yeah, it just kind of fizzled out. There's still like events going on, and I was saying to Rich, one of my old co-casters, look, if there's ever an event and I'm free, fuck it, I'll jump on for a bit. I still like the game, I still like the concept of what it is, but yeah, man, it's pretty cooked now. So
yeah, it's crazy, because it was like, I remember when we were doing it. I worked on, it was a partnership with OGN, I think.
Yeah, because OGN came over and took over the NA side eventually.
Yeah. And I think I did some stuff for we were like WSOE. We were producing was it a highlight show? You can tell how engaged I was with this. But anyway, and I had to do some content around it, and I went out they had that ridiculous studio in fucking LA or whatever it was.
Oh, the OGN studio? Yeah, that was. I was working in some fucking shit den in Berlin in like an empty hangar done by Starladder, bless them. And they're like, yeah, your green room's
some
actually
abandoned
the
sex dungeon, yeah,
mate,
classic.
It was fucking on, and we weren't even in like, you know, proper Berlin or the studio area. It was like bumfuck nowhere. You know, the difference between what NA had for some reason and EU was just like mental. But yeah, NA studio was fucking lush. It was really nice.
Yeah, and you know, so it was like, it looked so good, and I always thought they had like, you know, like really good talent over there as well. And I'm like, okay, this is sick. This is like really, really sick. A fucking sick overlay, graphics. Yep. I was doing something that was like Richard's rant. I had to record. I had a lectern, a custom-made lectern with like my face on it, and I used to do like straight-to-camera monologues that were like pre-scripted. And it was being filmed by a dude who directed a fucking Super Bowl, and that was getting cut. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, this is sick. And then I would like look at 3,000 viewers. It's like, what? 3,000 on Twitch, and I'm like, yeah, my spider sense tells me this isn't fucking sustainable.
Yeah. No, and luckily, one of the guys who just joined the NA, more NA-based, like, Riot team, actually came from the OGN studio. So again, saw that talent, brought over, already knows a little bit of esports, knows a lot of the talent, he's working with more of the talent for, like, global products. Incredible mind, like, really smart, really on the ball, and he's trying to bring people together and actually, like, make people cohesive and what have you. So it's actually been great seeing some of the people who work for Riot now are becoming the right people, if that makes sense. Like, not just these non-endemics. Like, there's something correct. Like, I don't need the sales team to be endemic to esports or, you know, whatever. Like, as long as they give a fuck that they're good at their job, brilliant. That's it. But I like people who are in production, you know, this side of it, to, you know what they're fucking doing. And we're getting some people coming back around now who are part of League, for example, long ago, that left and now coming back. They're on Valorant. We've got, you know, some of the producers from, like, back in the, like, machinima days who, you know, really have some ridiculous ideas, but are super cool, super great to work with, have been around the block, so you can't surprise them with dumb shit. They've already seen it a million times, so it's like, it's great working with some of the people they have there, because they're hiring the right people, which is, again, I'm waiting for it to go wrong, but as it stands, it's good. You know what I mean? I'm like, when does the penny drop? When does this, you know, start fucking up? Because so far they're doing good shit, and I never thought I'd be the one to be like singing Riot's praises, because I was so like, I wasn't anti it, remember I got an offer to work on League of Legends, right, as like a commentator and other stuff, years ago, and I just never wanted it. I didn't like the culture to it. I didn't like the mentality of it. But I think as their company grew and got a little bit more experience themselves, kind of meeting at Valorant has been a really nice, like, weird kind of coming to terms with it all. And kind of like, I remember talking to, I think it was like Waylon at one point, Waylon Rosella, who's just a brilliant mind. I mean, if you're talking about someone who's like intimidating to talk to, it's like Waylon. You know, you just like talk to me like, fuck, you're not stupid, and now I have to not be stupid. And it's like we were talking about, you know, just other products, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, of course I'll watch a Counter-Strike major. I watch, you know, TI from Dota." And it's like hearing someone say that who's in like a super senior position. I'm like, I fucking love that. I want you to watch all the other shows and go, "Oh, that was a cool idea." Because I mean, the big thing in my mind always with Riot was they just kind of steal the best ideas, right? Like Dota, they went, that looks good. We'll make it easier or simpler, should I say, or more accessible. League of Legends, Counter-Strike's a great game. How about Valorant? Or, you know, all these other games they're bringing out are always going to be like this slightly twisted version of another game, and they do it incredibly well. So it's great to see even in esports that they were taking on board, or at least noting other products. So I'm like, there's so much passion in Counter-Strike that, again, you think about the size of like Riot these days as well, and like they have to jump through a million hoops to get shit done. Whereas like I know for like some of that content, you know, like the what was it? Hey Future Pros, the shit Rush does for them. He'll sit there at home, record it himself, fucking do all this himself. You know, he just sat there of his own accord. Maybe it's part of his daily job or what have you. But this is, you know, that's off his back. If you tried to get that done at Riot, you'd have to go to like an external producer. You'd have to get, you know, the video shot by someone else. You know, this. It's like 10 different steps. Whereas Counter-Strike, you could just go to the person and be like, hey, you like Counter-Strike, right? You want to make this? I'll give you like $20. And I don't know which system's best. Because at the end of the day, you do get incredible quality, but then also this huge bureaucratic like run up to getting shit done, obviously. Whereas in CS or especially at ESL, if you have like a good idea, you can kind of go to the right person and kind of make it start happening. But it's also like, I hope they get paid correctly for this, because they are making like insanely good content. So it's like, I hope it's like balanced out properly for what their value is. But I don't know Counter-Strike anymore. I don't know that like world of it, but yeah, it's such a weird contrast that I'd actually find myself enjoying working with Riot, because I really didn't expect it.
Yeah. Brazil.
Yeah.
It looms.
It does.
It's when is it? It starts in like 10 days, 10, 11 days?
I think I leave in like 5-6 days.
Yeah, okay. So we should talk about that. This is the good bit. This is where you get to pander to the Brazilian fan base and get loads of engagement. Not that any Brazilian fans watch my shit, by the way, but if it gets clipped, you'll have the benefit. So obviously, you know, big event coming up in Valorant in Sao Paulo. I think Sao Paulo is a much better place to do an esports event. And just a prediction right out the gate before we talk about the teams there and all that stuff. I think it's going to be bigger in terms of its consistent appreciation from the audience than the CS:GO major. I think it's going to be a much better event.
Yeah, I think the CS:GO major was just it was a fuck up. I mean, you know, they made I don't know how you even categorize it at that point. Like, you know, you have a fan fest with an influencer that's more popular than the major. Like, that's devastating. And I'm sure for the people who put it on, it was, you know, good intentions gone incredibly bad, right? Like, you wanted to, you know, bring someone in who's, you know, super influential in the scene and, you know, get the fans involved, but then you kind of went a little too far and it kind of fucked up the event a bit. They eventually came back on track, but I mean, it wasn't great. Yeah, I know a lot of the writers watched that and went, ooh.
It's a great lesson for the industry. Honestly.
And what a rarity. You don't often get to see it in such a polarizing way. So hopefully they've made sure that's not gonna happen, because I can't even blame the fans, really. You know, you go for whatever you want to go. You want to be outside in the sun having a beer, watching the game. Favorite streamers there, cool. Fuck City.
Yeah, a lot of people tunneled in on that and were going, "Wow, these fans should be cheering for." I wouldn't fucking cheer for outsiders. No. I'd fucking if you're telling me what I go outside and just get shit faced or watch outsiders. I get shit faced in the sun or watch outsiders butcher Counter-Strike. I'm out. Like give me the beer. Yep. Hola, fucking, you know what I mean? Like I'm done.
absolutely don't blame them. Like, again, you paid for your tickets. If you want to go and do that, do it. Enjoy the event how you want. That is your right as a fucking viewer. If you are, a super, purist who just loves the game, doesn't even care who's playing, just purely wants to watch the mechanical side of Counter-Strike, then sure, you might be a bit disgruntled by that. You may not like that idea of it, but again, they're the ones who turned up to the event, not you. So who gives a fuck? Let people enjoy it how they want, but it was a fuck up from the TO side. So that's what it was. But yeah, Sao Paulo, if everything is right, should be a pretty substantial event. I don't know, again, I don't know how big Valorant is in, like, Brazil. I still see Brazil and Copenhagen as Counter-Strike territory. Always do. That in my mind. But I know it's big out there. I know it's got a big fan base, but I just don't know. Is it the fan base that's willing to turn to the event? Because again,
I think the pendulum swung all the way. I think Valorant's the bigger game in Brazil now, frankly.
So I'll have to wait and see. I genuinely don't know. So it's like, for me, I'm just kind of curious if, again, because Valorant was born during kind of COVID, right? Like, people weren't instantly ready to go to events. They, haven't had that live environment culture built up yet. It's quite a young audience. They don't have that sport style to it, but Brazil does. So maybe it will blend really well on that. I'm not sure. I mean, it should go down well. The sales are looking okay, I think, from what we've been told of the tickets. Are they going pretty good? They're happy enough with that. I'm walking in pretty much unknowing of this, so yeah, I'm excited to see what the audience looks like out there. Because I mean, we've been seeing Japan holding like their regional events, which have been unreal. Like, they'll have their like equivalent of their like literally regional style events in fucking stadiums. Like, that to me is crazy. Because again, I don't really see that side of it. You see like Europe, you'll see NA. I don't really know the other regions so well, so I'm hoping Brazil is popular. I hope the atmosphere is good. I hope it's like a good time, it's fun. Because I think the one thing that people aren't, maybe they are noticing, maybe I'm selling them short, but the quality of the Valorant played will probably be substantially lower than where we left off, right?
Right.
Because the teams have been reshuffled. We've got a whole lot of new players, a whole lot of new fives. Some maintained the core 3 and then added 2, additionals. Some, I think it was like DRX kept their full 5, the Korean side. Maybe a couple of others. But there's very few that will have had that same 5, and they've had, now a couple of years of playing together to learn. It's single elimination. The actual games themselves could be super skewed. It could be really hard to tell. And if people don't, hit the ground running, you're going to get absolutely fucked in this. So it's going to be one of the hardest tournaments potentially to predict, unless you go for the safe route of whoever's been together the longest and has some pedigree there to actually win it, rather than just like mediocrity. But yeah, it should be a good event. Should.
It's a hell of a venue they've picked. Because low key, I know people probably find this surprising. I like sports a little bit.
That's crazy.
And Brazil, right? In Brazil, have certainly played a part historically in a lot of sports. The stadium you're in is named after Geraldo Jose de Almeida, right? Who is like a legendary fucking sports commentator. And
cool.
and they've had like loads of, it's all used for different sports. It's not like a dedicated soccer stadium or anything. It's like volleyball, basketball's been there, stuff like that. So it's actually like a super cool venue. It's about 12,000 capacity, something like that.
That's about right.
Yeah, and so I think they will absolutely fill it. I think, or it will certainly feel full when you are in there.
Yeah, because I think Valorant's still learning how to be, live fans a little bit. It's Counter-Strike fans, I feel like, they learned throughout the years. Same with League fans. I don't like, League's approach of just very reserved. I kind of like the rowdier side, which is what we're seeming to get with Valorant, which is nice. Because like Counter-Strike, it's like you're going to a football game. I always think about ESO1 Cologne. When you go there, the atmosphere's really top-notch. Katowice as well, to be fair. Like, a lot of the big ones are certainly incredible. And I'm hoping Valorant tends more towards that, and especially I feel in Brazil they understand that kind of fan side of things. They are but whether you love it or hate it, I mean, I'm sure it can rub people the wrong way, but I'm hoping we get a nice lively crowd, because again it should be fun. I'd say some of the more popular teams as well should have some decent Brazilian presence on it. I mean, with some of the rosters changing, Brazilian players being imported into North America, playing on those rosters. Assuming they get out of the first round, they should be pretty good. I think it's on Sentinels that they join. So again, I think they might be meeting Fnatic in their first round. So actually a huge couple of games at the very opening set. So yeah, it could be interesting to see who actually walks away with it.
Yeah, I feel like the emergence of Loud as a sort of dominant team has been, and obviously I know they've made changes and stuff, but I think it's super important to help grow the region. We saw that explosive growth in CS when they had a team to cheer for and a team that was capable of winning the event.
Actually winning, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally think, like, certainly when Loud are playing, if Loud have a good tournament run, I think the event is going to look amazing. I really do.
Yes, I hope it does. I like the idea of like regional and team support, but I also obviously I still hope that people just turn up to watch the games. There's enough interest that it trickles over. Obviously, Brazil I think is a little bit more black and white when it comes to they support their teams. We saw that obviously during the the major out there, that it's when Fury were playing or whoever else they are there.
It's a partisan event for them, which is fine, by the way. I think people objecting to like backing your team over other teams in stadium events, it's an attitude we're gonna have to move away from in esports, that you cheer for everybody, because fuck that. I don't want to cheer for certain teams. I don't care about certain teams. I care about the teams I care about. So but I think in general in esports, fans overall are good at appreciating. Okay, my team's gone home. I've got the ticket anyway.
Fuck it, I'll go and.
Yeah, there's some really good players on today, so I'll go and watch. It's like getting a random ticket to a World Cup game. You probably go just to watch whoever's playing.
Yeah, that's the hope, at least, that becomes maybe the mentality, because obviously you don't want to take away the tribalism, because it drives interest, right? Because if your team's playing, you're going to turn up and watch it, or you're going to care more about that game. That's completely fine. That's why we build certain content, be more emotive around certain things, right? It draws that out of people. But I do hope that other side of things does get applied here as well. They're like, oh, actually, or maybe I want to watch this team as well. I kind of like this player. I've seen their streams or whatever, just shit like that. So I'm hoping that translates too. So we'll see. Again, I've never been to Brazil before. Never went for Counter-Strike. Never did any of that. So a region that I'm not particularly familiar with in that regard. But I'm quite excited, honestly. It's going to be good fun. Me and Mike are going to head out there. We're on the same flight, so we're just going to get drunk on the flight together. I think everyone's on the same fucking flight. Like, we're looking at the flight list, it's just got everyone on it going out of Heathrow. So yeah, it should be fine. Should be fun. I think we land at the crack of dawn, so we'll see if we can actually sleep on the flight. So
I saw a clip on Twitter, and it was someone like had posted like shoot me or something, and there was a video, and it was like a bunch of people singing like songs with a guitar on a fucking plane.
Oh fuck! I saw it. It was like Kumbaya or whatever.
Yeah, it was something really unbelievably lame. I'm just thinking, like, where's fucking Bane when you need him? You know what I mean? Like fuck this.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine anything worse.
Yeah, no, so I hope that doesn't happen to you. But look, just to wrap it up, because we're coming up to the end of time, the end of all time, the end of space time. Predictions for Brazil, first big event of the year. It's going to be the pace setter in terms of where everybody's at. Obviously, people are coming back from the holidays. Everyone's put on those Christmas pounds, enjoyed some time with their friends and family. So which teams do we need to look out for, and why, and who do you think will win the event?
Okay. I'll go for the safe mentality of it. DRX, I think, should win. They've maintained the same 5, and they're already a contender for like top 3 finishes, deep runs, prior to the reshuffle. So I say, if DRX don't fuck up, they should, be at least in a finalist. Whether or not they win it, who the fuck knows. But I'd say DRX are probably my favored side to do that deep run if you're being logical about things. I'd say someone like Na'Vi could be pretty nasty, kind of that CNED, one of the kind of more mechanically gifted players who fell off a little bit, became a little bit more quiet, has had a resurgence recently, starting to look a little bit better, and he's under the, tutelage of the likes of Angel. You've got a little bit more of an experienced lead on that, and somewhat of an interchangeable player with Ardis, who then went over to the next team I'd say would do well as NRG, because I put faith in FNS. So yeah, I'd say DRX, NRG, and Na'Vi. But by that account, I also say Fnatic should also do a deep run. So those would be the 4 teams I'd probably look at, because by all accounts, Fnatic only had upgrades. They got Chronicle and they got Leo in, who I'd say pound for pound are some of the best that were available, flat out, and just generally very, very, very solid. to round out, the roster that's got like Alfayir in there, which is this, Turkish superstar, like one of, the young prospects who's just ridiculous, and Durka, who's statistically one of the best players out there.
Yeah.
So if Boaster can play the hand that he's been given, which is maybe one of the strongest, he'll do well. But he is facing the team that basically denied them one of their biggest wins ever, Sentinels, I think, in round 1. So could fuck up, could fall to pieces. It is going to be single limb. It's super, cutthroat. You fuck up once, you're gone. But
which, by the way, what a fucking gnarly format.
I like it though.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like that's what I mean. Like I think gnarly's good. Like fuck, because man, I'm so bored of Blast. Like stop with a million fucking chances to win. Like
I don't have time to watch other games. And maybe that's on me, right? A personal preference. I don't have that much time to give that many fucks. I want to watch, again, this came from the fact that they want to put on a showcase from, again, what I've kind of been told at least, a showcase of all the new teams. Obviously, with that many teams, it's either you do a brutally long kind of group stage or you do double streams, which they've never wanted to do. They've always been very clear they don't want to do an A and a B stream. So it's like, the only way to do that is either you have horrifically long days, which would be rough as fuck, or you do a really long group stage, or you make it single elim, or you do best of 1. So I think rather than that being at least single elim is the way to go. But yeah, I like it because, as I said, they said this is a one-off. It's not going to become commonplace. This is, to facilitate the new teams coming out. Again, that, look at who they are. This year is a little bit lighter in regards to certain events, but it's that's above my pay grade. I just turn up and talk about the game. So I like this format. I liked it. I think it was in StarCraft at Katowice. They did it before, like a... it was like whoever won wins everything. There's no like breakdown of prize as well. Like that was super cutthroat, and I think that's really interesting as a viewer because obviously as a player I'd be pissed. That'd fucking suck. But as a viewer, I'm like,
it would fuck up coming second. That would be fucking awful.
That would be dog shit. Yeah. But a one-off event, I don't mind it for because it's it's a spectacle. It's something to just go. Oh, it's a standoff event. Why not? Could be really cool to see it. You get to see some crazy matchups early that have super high stakes, because like normally group stage is kind of dull. You can kind of just second screen it, check in, oh yeah, scores there. I actually want to watch all the games now. I want to pay attention, who's looking good, who's not. It's really just a litmus test of who's turned up ready for this event, how they're looking going on in the year. So quite exciting.
Yeah, and like I say, I think stakes are like super important to like storytelling. Yeah. Which is why, like, for me, formats have to be like single elim best of 3s, or we can do double elim best of 3s if you've got extra time. But all of these stupid fucking never-ending round robins, like everything's a group stage or a qualifier to something else. It's like, why do I care about this game when I'm going to see the same teams play each other next week? And it's going to be, hey, this is summer, this is spring, this is fucking the middle of both, and like I can't do this. Like it's like I need to feel something, Lauren. I need to feel something.
We're all dead inside. Like I get it, because there's always going to be that person who's like, no, I want the best team to be the one in the final. I want the fairest way to do it. But it's like there's a middle ground where it just becomes excessive otherwise. As you said, you'll just be there for a fucking lifetime watching a never-ending round-robin group stage or, shit like that. So, yeah, I think there is a margin I just don't want to go over because I'll just be fucking tired of it by the end of it.
All right. So, penultimate question.
Sure.
We'll swing back. And that, you obviously, as I said, you have won an award. You've established yourself as one of the go-to commentators in Valorant. Valorant seem to be treating you well. You seem happy, healthy, Yep. Everything is, going super well. CS. Like, I know you've always said never say never and all of that stuff, but I mean, let's say there was an opportunity to come and do the tour, like all of the tour, right? Like the whole thing and a major, everything, the full Monty, but it probably means you're gonna not be able to do as many or Valorant or maybe none. Where would you be at with that?
Fuck me.
Yeah, tough one.
Major as well. It's like there's this romantic idea in my head of me coming back and doing Counter-Strike with the tools I have now, the new kind of confidence, the new capability, all of that, right? Like there's always been that God, I want to do one fucking either tier 1 event, one, you know, really just all out in it. Just to go, fuck it, this is what I could have done. And a little bit of just for myself more than anything, say, fuck, you know, this is what it could have been. And it's selfish, but I still watch Counter-Strike. I still watch the play-ins that are happening now. I remember we stopped, it was in Copenhagen when we were doing our event. It was Alex casting, I think it was in Cologne, I think it was the same time. And it was one of the best, but it was the final, because their event finished just as ours was kind of getting to the group stage. And I remember instantly on my phone out there waiting for the shuttle, because he was giving one of the best performances. It was the grand final. It was fucking amazing. I mean, it was just one of those where I'm like, holy shit, he's now like ascended that level. I have to listen to this. I have to watch the game. Like, there's a limit that Counter-Strike can hit that is so high. Like, there's something about it that's beautiful to watch when it gets there. And it's 1 in 1,000 games, 2,000 games. But when the stars align, you get that one final, that one semi, that one moment where you're like, this is what it's all about. And I still wish I could go back and do. I'll take one big event. I'll take one, you know, S tier event, or fuck. I feel like you have to deserve a major. I've always felt like it should be a meritocracy where it's like, you've worked the year, you've done well, have at it. That's your reward, or, you know, something like that. I always think it has to be that. Otherwise, it doesn't feel right. But regardless, would I trade my current security? Nice wages. The rates are good, Richard. I work a good day. The hotels are lovely. Yeah. We're in luxurious locations, not Katowice.
I love how everyone in the entire CS talent pool just like there ain't no love for Katowice, because it's like, listen, just for those who've never been there, it's basically like, it's like where I fucking grew up.
It is a mining town, I'm pretty
It's a mining town. It's the heart of Polish industry, which means, you know, it's got that dour post-Soviet era architecture. Yeah, it's you know,
the
and
brutalism everywhere.
Yeah, and there's not a lot to do. So you end up in your hotel room climbing the walls, basically.
Yeah, you go to the same petrol station, you get the same Tyskie beers, and you end up.
Yeah, you have some Tyskie and a Ginster steak and bacon, except it's called Ginsti.
But I still have a lot of love for it. That's a weird thing. It's like, I still fucking love those days of having that weird shit beer that was just, you'd just end up sharing, you know, beers down in the lobby. Like, I still love that mentality. I think that's changed now. I think they're in better hotels. You know, CS has also evolved as well. I think they're in the nicer hotels that, you know, the XX used to stay in, and we were in like some fucking travel lodge. Now I think they're in the nicer place. But still,
I just wish they'd move Katowice to Krakow. Like, it would just be, because Krakow's fucking amazing. It's like, you can get there. You can get there on a train. I mean, you know, but it's like, if you've got work the next day, you can't do it.
No, but no, I mean, I think I'd want, like, I'm not speaking in a realist way, because if I'm thinking about, like, rates, financially, my future, all that shit, then it would be a stupid thing to just go, see you, Valorant. I'm going to go do this for like a year, but it's cool if I come back. You're not going to move on from me. We're just going to take a break. You know what I mean? We'll be fine. That probably wouldn't work out. But if the dream came true where I could do both and it wouldn't overlap, I'd fucking love to do one big Counter-Strike event. That's the one. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to do it like for myself more than anything. Be like, come back with all, as I said, the tools I have now, and say, let's fucking have at it. Let's really just go all out. This is the one that we're just going to fucking smash. So I'd love to give it a try, and maybe if the stars aligned, because for some fucking reason it pisses me off. Our events overlap all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's near on impossible, but I love the idea of it. The idea is very romantic in my mind, that I'd have this one return and really enjoy it, send it off, and be happy there and then. Just be like, cool, done that. But it doesn't make logical sense to do that yet. So, you know.
So. You've already answered the last question. I always end the podcast with, like, what are you doing next? And it's like, in obviously you're going to Brazil. We've established that. So the last question is sort of redundant. But what does the year look like for you beyond? You know, and are you going to be doing anything like it's a little bit of a surprise, a little bit interesting, something not Valorant? You know.
As it stands, we're mostly locking in the year for Valorant, right? So, Riot were pleasant enough. I don't know how to be non-arse kissy, to kind of discuss the idea of, hey, let's get you a full year worth of work. Let's get you situated. So then you know where you stand, right? Because as a freelancer, knowing your schedule is half the battle. Because you're like, fuck, I don't know if I've got payment here or there. So we're like, hey, this could work out. So I think it's like agreeing on rates that would work throughout that time. Let's get everything in order. So that's kind of happening now. So should be good for that. Again, may spoil that I'm probably at the rest of the events of the year if I don't fuck something up. If I don't turn up on a show, I've said something mental that's just got me like pulled off. But by all accounts, should be fine in negotiation phase. So that's it. EMEA regional stuff still in discussions, but should be hopefully working out. Again, that would be kind of going to Berlin back and forth potentially. So that would be kind of the year. And anything beyond that, I'd love to do even like an Impact League thing for Counter-Strike. Love to work out a little bit of Pro League, 'cause Pro League was always fun to me. And I'd love to just do like a fucking guest show. Just fucking turn up for a day or two. Do it like mates rates. I don't give a fuck. Like, I wouldn't come back to Counter-Strike for the money, because I'm pretty sure Valorant rates supersede Counter-Strike rates these days. Maybe wrong, but I'm pretty sure they actually are now above, which is mind-blowing to me these days. But it is what it is, because CS was always like the big dog, apart from like Taste of Sartosis. Or like in my mind, there was always like the good rates were there. But I'd love to do one big event, or do like a Pro League, just come out for a fucking weekend, shoot the shit with the boys, catch up, see how everything is. But that would have to be planned in, right? So that takes talking to Joe, figuring out if there's room, figuring out rates, all the other fun shit. And then probably the more exciting thing is that probably in 2024 I'll be looking to potentially go to North America or maybe another region, because little tired of EU.
We're exporting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a bit fucking... I've done Europe, right? Like, I've done Counter-Strike in Europe, which I think was like the pinnacle of what I was doing at the time there. There was nothing bigger in NA at the time. I think I'd love to experience it for a little while, see if I like North America, see if I like working with a different team out there, because I feel like once you've worked in Europe, and this is an esports thing, and you've worked in, let's say, for like 5+, maybe almost, let's say 7 years as like a cap, you've probably worked with most of the good producers, most of the good content creators, most of the good talent. So you've kind of done I've tested it out. I've got to experience some of the better people out here. It's been really fun. Love to see what the other side has. Love to test out maybe in Korea, wherever it is. Really get to kind of enjoy some aspect of it. So I think that would be on the horizon. If I fancy chasing that, we'll have to wait and see if that becomes a possibility. Obviously, that includes visas and work in 24 and all this other stuff. So it's a bit of a pipe dream, but it's a concept that I'd like to explore. I'd say is like the horizon aspect.
Right. Well. We're done. We finally got it done, Lauren. Between my fucking internet and my disgusting life.
You've been having a tough time, man.
Fuck me,
can't hold
dude.
it against you.
Yeah, and you want to know what's great? All my loving community are just on Discord go, why isn't he streaming? It's like, I'm sat in the fucking...
There's nothing wrong with you. It's just why is he giving me content?
Yeah, I'm sat in a black hole right now. I've got fuck all to do.
You shouldn't be left alone, Richard. You should have emergency internet backup.
That's when bad things happen.
Exactly.
That's when I start tweeting.
Put the phone down.
Yeah. But anyway, great to catch up, and I'm super glad everything's going super well for you. So there it is, everyone. The award-winning Pansy. Make sure you go and follow her on all of the socials, which should be on the screen if Sam has done his job. That was another episode of the Richard Lewis show. I don't know when the next one will be. I don't know who the next guest is going to be, but as always, it'll be a banger. So make sure you do all that Zoomer shit. Like, comment, and subscribe in the doobly-doo, as the boomers call it. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.